For a 5th year anniversary of a video that got me invested into roller coasters, here's my remake featuring elements from all over the world that only a devil could have devised. As long as it operated during the 2024 theme park season, it is up for judgment. So you'd better praise Lord Chris this Halloween as I go through 13 demonic roller coaster elements. First up, we have a ride that I have actually been on. Yes, that's an accomplishment. DC Rivals Hypercoaster is widely considered the best coaster in Australia, mainly due to its long, intense layout packed with Ejector airtime that this list has plenty of. And although the vertical drop and final hills are wild, the most insane element is the 40-meter tall non-inverting loop. Taken at rapid speed, this sends riders forcefully twisting around as they are lifted up in this uncommon element. And doing this backwards is a whole nother level of freaky. So out of all roller coaster elements I've ridden, that non-inverting loop is a... But what about a coaster twice as tall, such as Top Thrill 2 at Cedar Point? Having the world's first 400-foot drop, those who rode it this year said the ride experience has been improved over the original. The ride now gets progressively faster and wilder, building up to that climax of the drop. As the seats are elevated higher above the track than the old ride, the 270-degree twist takes the Ejector airtime over the drop and extends it all the way down the spiral, all whilst exerting lateral G similar to that of DC Rivals Loop. The difference is this time, you're plummeting straight down from the top of the world's first triple launch Stratocoaster. But not all these demonic elements have to be on the giant rides. Take for instance, Tornado at the world's oldest amusement park, Barkin. This small 12-meter tall intimate spinning coaster may look like a typical family spinner until you see the cars ride up its special lift hill. Using 2 chains and a hydraulic motor, the cars accelerate up the hill and into the first drop, violently whipping riders over the edge as they start spinning wildly. You wouldn't believe you were just going 51 k's an hour then. And don't even get me started on boost mode, where you spin up an even faster lift. But what if you took a spinning coaster like Tornado and added inversions to the layout? Mark Rides thought of that as they made the Extreme Spinning Coaster model, the second of which, the Ride's Happiness at Plopsaland, Japan, has often been ranked as one of Europe's best roller coasters. But out of this ride's top hat, 2 launches, and at least 5 inversions, the final of these inversions is arguably the most insane. Some call it a flying snake dive, others call it a double inverting dive loop, but whatever it's called, this element comes right after the second launch, where riders are already spinning rapidly. The track then twists 540 degrees and floats riders up in the air, resulting in a disorienting experience that is the closest an untrained person can do to a corked flip like this. I know I'm not the best. I think this isn't even the limit of the Extreme Spinning Coaster model. And sure, spinning around like a top is cool, but doing backflips and front flips is cooler. Legendary coaster designer Alan Schilke thought that as well, and sought to create the 4th dimension coaster, where 2 extra set of rails control the seat's rotation relative to the track all throughout the ride. Only 3 of these have been built: X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Ejector at Fuji Q Highland, and Dinoconda at China Dinosaurs Park. All 3 of these monsters have similar layouts, and they all start with the same first drop. This small little dip taken backwards that freaks many riders out as they think we're about to fall. Nah, they should have waited 2 seconds before they are rotated to face straight down the near vertical hypercoaster-sized drop. But before you can reach the bottom, you rapidly flip forwards onto your back and soar up into a Raven turn, with intense positive G's to look back at what you just went through. This topped Airtime Thrills' original list, and for good reason, as you may think of Alan Schilke as an evil genius after that dropped. But this isn't the only demonic element at Six Flags Magic Mountain, where at the top of the mountain itself, Tatsu resides. As the world's tallest flying coaster, it spends most of its time gracefully flying and twisting over the top of a mountain, all just to let you dread for what's to come. You see the track dip down right in front of you as you dive headfirst through the 124-foot tall Pretzel loop. Many other flying coasters have this, but none as big as Tatsu. This has best been described as a super intense somersault, pulling you with intense G's straight over your face as you ride through this upside down loop. To quote the original video, "For an otherwise graceful and gentle ride, B&M saw the opportunity to take their signature pretzel loop to the extreme with Tatsu." Going back to the home country of the manufacturer for many of these rides, Switzerland, we can find one of the most bizarre looking pieces of track ever assembled. Cobra at Coneyland is a bizarre shuttle coaster, featuring a beyond vertical lift hill, face-to-face seating, and the world's only scorpion tail. Hey, that's only what it looked like until 2023. Now it looks even more bizarre. You ride through a vertical loop and come into this dead-end straight section of track, suspended completely upside down with only a lap bar. For 5 to 6 seconds, you're just hanging there, in the air, on this thing that some guy at PAX came up with. You might even ride up a curve now if you're in the front. So instead of taking an inversion at 0 speed, what if you took an double spine track on Velocicoaster? Do you know where Intamin first used it? I-305 at King's Dominion. This gig coaster is possibly the most intense coaster currently operating, largely due to its first turn. Instead of a hill or high turn right after a 300-foot drop, Werner Sengel decided on a wide 270-degree turn to follow up the drop before rising into a hill under the lift. The sustained positive G through this turn was so intense it had to be altered so not as many unprepared guests were blacking out. For those who are unfamiliar, blacking out is where strong G forces reduce blood and oxygen levels in the brain, resulting in a temporary loss of vision. I-305's blackout turn is the only element on this list so demonic they had to elevate it up a few levels in hell. Hey, I'm not Christian, I don't know how a lot of this works. But they could have made the turn way tighter if they were feeling a bit despicable, but probably not as tight as the turns on Wild Mouse XXL on the German fair circuit. You wouldn't expect a Wild Mouse that can be quickly packed up and moved to a new location to be too crazy, or that it would even be possible to extend an already existing roller coaster layout. But this coaster defies those expectations. By Frankensteining on 2 large extra drops at the start, your tiny car will zip through those original tiny turns over speed. You're left clinging to the side of your seat through the back-to-back turns without slowing down for a break. This may make you thankful for trim brakes in the future, as going without them on Wild Mouse XXL will show you what the XXL stands for. Extra, extra ludicrous. But that's not the only unassuming ride with a wild twist. Zippin Pippin at Bay Beach became known after Airtime Thrills himself took a $1 ride and found the Ejector death hill. For almost no reason, the Gravity Group chose to place a super tight crest on this hill when rebuilding the original, violently launching riders so high they'll be left shaking like Elvis's hips. You've probably had a wild taste in rides, as this was his favourite. Although this place could have been taken by the Triangle Hills on Magnum XL 200, or the final hills on Phantom's Revenge, I chose to honour the king and my inspiration by going with Zippin Pippin. Fast forwarding over 100 years after the original Pippin was built to the present day, a new for 2024 roller coaster comes in with a devilish element. Hyperia now stands as the UK's tallest roller coaster, and it's the second Mach Hypercoaster on this list. Although shorter in length than DC rivals, its drop is even more twisted, and the second element is again its wildest. This is essentially a fusion of the fan favourite outer banked Airtime hill and Iron Gwazi's barrel roll drop, with the intense ejector of the former going into a wild lateral G-filled flip of the latter, in a profile the designers of the Pippin could have only nightmared of. Plus, the whole thing lasts so long that you've got enough time to wander through the unusual directions of the forces if this element was worth the valleying risk. It was. Nearing the end of the video, Satan's final element comes at the end of his final ride, ArieForce 1. For Joe Draver's first design in Alan Schilke's place, he went all out with the greatest hits compilation of RNC elements. Goliath's dive loop, Zadra's stall, Steel Vengeance's outward banked Airtime hill, Hakuge's double up, a barrel roll over the arcade, and ending with a new version of Lightning Rod's quad down. But without the terrain, they went for 4 straight dips at full power down the midway. You'll bounce so aggressively up and down against your lap bar and your seat that you may want the brake one to start earlier, much like the end of this video.